Feeling the extremely rich power of the sun god in his body, which instantly increased several times, Jason's heart suddenly became excited. The effect of this chaos raw stone is so strong. If I continue to absorb it, won't I be able to reach the peak of the sun god? Jason's heart couldn't help but light up. It is an extremely long process to practice from the early days of Sun Yao God to the peak of Sun Yao God, because it is not only the accumulation of divine power, but also a breakthrough in the laws of space. But for Jason, in the laws of space their understanding is not weaker than that of Chi-Ji and the others. As long as they have enough energy, they can continue to make breakthroughs. Normally, it would take at least 100 years for me to practice from the early stage of the sun god to the peak. This is because my cultivation method is special and my cultivation speed is much faster than that of the ordinary sun god. Now relying on this chaos raw stone, wouldn't it be able to greatly reduce my training? The process? Jason's heart became animated. For Jason, who is the god of medicine and a master of formations, money is simply an external thing, but growth in cultivation is not something that can be obtained easily. Give me 10 more of these chaos rough stones, Jason said. It can greatly reduce his training process and time. It is quite useful for Jason. The world of gods is full of dangers, and no one knows what his next moment will be. What we will face is naturally that the stronger we are, the better. Naturally, Jason would not be stingy with this little money. 10 more chaos rough stones? The beautiful woman in purple robe opened her mouth slightly, looking very surprised. This is a big business, and they also get commissions from selling things here. Although the proportion is very small, but for a deal like Jason's, she could earn millions of divine stones from commission alone. But soon, as if she felt that she had lost her composure, the woman hurriedly regained her composure and said, "Sir, this kind of chaotic rough stone is the king of stones in the mines, and its quantity is very rare. Our store still has a total of there are 8 left. Moreover, this chaos rough stone cannot be absorbed infinitely. The amount absorbed varies according to each person's physique. However, the limit that can usually be reached is the peak of the sun god. I don't know if you can take out 5 at a time." With 1 billion sacred stones, the purple-robed woman had already regarded Jason as the young master of a super-large family. After all, she had heard Chi-Ji and the others call Jason Sir. Then 8. Jason didn't care. Immediately delivered the divine crystal worth 4 billion divine stones to the other party. TSK. What a big deal. You are so young, I don't know which family he is from. Many customers watching and buying other things looked at Jason with envy, and there were even 2 strong men who rolled their eyes. It seemed that they had some idea, but after feeling the unfathomable strength of Jason and his group of 6 people, they suppressed their bad thoughts. They are also quite powerful in their respective regions. They are not afraid of anything, but this kind of person who can throw away 4 to 5 billion sacred stones to buy such consumable items that can only offset thousands of years of cultivation is not someone they can offend at all. The world of gods is extremely dangerous, and it is easy to be careless. Throw away all your lives. Sir, you are so arrogant. You are really worthy of being an adult. The 5 people in Longtas were also very surprised and sighed. Jason was not tempted by any other treasures along the way, but he was attracted by this chaos rough stone. 4 to 5 billion sacred stones. That's basically the entire property of an ordinary early-stage sunlight god, and it was used by the adults in exchange for 1,000 years of cultivation. Longtas secretly sighed. For the strong men in the god realm, time is the least precious. No one will be unable to improve their strength because of a short training time and insufficient accumulated divine power. Those who are stuck are all the understanding of the laws at various levels. It's a pity that Chi-Ji and the others don't know. It has been less than 100 years since Jason was reborn. The time that was worthless to Chi-Ji and the others was quite precious to Jason. Chi-Chi. Everyone continued to move forward on the 6th floor, while Jason continued to absorb the rough chaos stones in his hands. The rough stones were absorbed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, half of the chaos stone in Jason's hand disappeared. But when Jason absorbed the sixth one, he discovered a problem. The chaos stone in his hand no longer disappeared, and the power of the sun god in his body seemed to have reached saturation and could no longer be increased. So fast? Jason was startled. At this moment, the strength of the sun god in his body has completely left the early stage, and has reached the middle stage of the sun god. But that's it. Just absorbing it can no longer increase it. Didn't the waiter say that he can usually be promoted to the peak of the sun god? It seems that my own physique is too special. Jason shook his head and did not think that the other party was deceiving him. After all, he could do business here. Reputation is the most important thing. Of course, Jason is very satisfied with being able to get himself from the early stage to the mid stage. The remaining 3 can be saved. They can be used when the time comes to set up formations, prepare elixirs, or if a lot of divine power is consumed in battle and need to be replenished. Originally, Jason had prepared these 8 raw chaos stones. If it's not enough, you can go look for it in other trading castles in the inner city, but now you don't need it. Next, Jason and the others started shopping in other stores. Walking in the shops on the 6th floor, Jason also felt the benefits of having money. Many coveted treasures can be bought directly with money. You know, these treasures are usually purchased by a large number of strong people who risk their lives. Obtained, perhaps behind every treasure, there are countless strong men who have fallen. Sir, after visiting this medicinal material store, we have almost finished visiting the Amethyst Castle. At this moment, Jason and his group are in the last medicinal material store on the 6th floor. The medicinal material store on the 6th floor is bigger than before. The ones on several levels are much better. Not only do they contain mid-grade magical medicines, but there are even 2 high-grade magical medicines. And the price is not too expensive. It only costs hundreds of millions of divine stones per plant. This makes Jason almost feel uncomfortable. Dare to believe. However, after seeing the effects of these 2 high-grade magical medicines, Jason understood the reason and directly spent nearly 1 billion divine stones to purchase them. Basically, in the world of gods, it is impossible to take too many high-grade magical medicines, because most of the top-grade magical medicines are not prepared and have certain benefits for strong people at the level of gods. However, some high-grade magical medicines cannot be directly absorbed. It must be prepared by an elixir, such as the 2 strains in Jason's hands now. Although these top-grade magical medicines are powerful, few people buy them. After all, those who can spend so much money to buy top-grade magical medicines are at least the gods of the sun. However, this part of the magical medicine cannot be absorbed by the gods, so it is naturally useless. And although the elixir masters can prepare it, with the strength of these elixir masters in the god realm, it is easy to fail to prepare such a precious elixir with high-grade elixirs, resulting in loss of people and money. Naturally, this part of the high-grade elixirs will not be used. Favored by elixirs. Therefore, it is normal for these 2 top-grade magic medicines to be placed here and no one cares about them. Now that we're done shopping here, let's go back. Under the smiling faces of the salesperson, Jason and the others walked towards the door of the store. Huh? Just when Jason and his party were about to leave the store, Jason felt that the Blue Moon Ancient Forest sacred tree in the God of War tower between his eyebrows seemed to sense something, and it couldn't help but move. At the same time, the feeling moved Jason. His eyes were inexplicably drawn to a bloody stem on the counter. This? Jason was startled, stopped, and carefully looked at the blood-colored stem, which was only as thick as his little finger. From the blood-colored stem, Jason felt a unique wave of elixir. This wave of elixir is not like ordinary magic medicine, but has a special feeling of life. At the same time, the holy tree in the God of War tower is also constantly swaying. Could this be? Jason thought of a possibility, his eyes suddenly burst into light, and he said to the salesperson in red robe, "Show me this miracle medicine." Because of the previous consumption, after hearing his instructions, the salesperson immediately stepped forward and enthusiastically handed the blood-colored stem to Jason's hand. As soon as he got it, Jason could clearly feel the difference between the blood-colored stem and ordinary magic medicine. What was even more shocking to Jason was that the breath of the blood-colored stem seemed to be somewhat similar to the holy tree transformed by Blue Moon Goosen. Saints, is this the magic medicine that the saints turned into after their death? Jason's heart suddenly felt like a storm was rising. He came to the god realm in order to find the whereabouts of the saints and save Lanui Goosen. Now that I see this stem, how can I not be excited? And Jason can clearly feel that although the life in this stem has completely passed away and has only become a magical medicine, it is quite new, probably only in the past few hundred years at most. What's the name of this magical medicine, and where did it come from? Jason looked at the red-robed woman calmly. Sir, I know most of the magical medicines here, but I don't know the origins of only a few. This one is the one. When the manager brought it, he just told me it was called the holy medicine and the price was 100 million divine stones. I don't know the other ones. I don't understand. The woman in red robe smiled and said, all the elixirs here are found by the family, and I am just the person who sells them. Family? Jason asked doubtfully. Sir, you have just come to Thunder Island. The woman in red robe said with a smile, the entire inner city of Thunder Island is jointly managed by 3 major families, and our Amethyst Castle is affiliated to one of the 3 major families. The Warrender family. The Warrender family, one of the 3 major families? Jason was surprised. This was the first time he heard this. Yes, many of the properties on Thunder Island belong to our 3 major families. For example, the mark of our Warrender family is a redbud flower. Anyone with this mark is the property of our Warrender family. Bohemia? Jason thought of the flower engraved above the Hilton Hotel and the Amethyst Castle. It was obviously this redbud. Then how big are these 3 major families? Jason couldn't help but be shocked. There were so many items in the entire Amethyst Castle, and the combined wealth was an extremely astonishing number, which was simply astronomical. And the woman in red robe also said that many properties on Thunder Island belong to the 3 major families. You know, there are several castles in the inner city alone, and there are also some fighting arenas, auction houses, etc. on Thunder Island. Places like these real core buildings are obviously owned by the 3 major families and cannot be distributed to outsiders. It's really scary. If most of the wealth in Thunder Island belongs to the 3 major families, then these 3 major families are probably no less powerful than the master of the first palace on the mainland. Chi-Ji's solemn voice also spoke. Rang in Jason's ears. Yes. Jason nodded. After asking nothing from the red-robed woman, Jason and his group turned around and left the Amethyst Castle. Next, Jason and the others visited several other castles. Each time, Jason went directly to the top floor and searched in the medicine shop to see if there were any saint things. Unfortunately, after searching again and again, what was there? None were found. This bloody stem is quite well preserved. It should have been obtained within the past 200 years. If we can find out where the bloody stem came from the Warrender family, we might be able to find the Saint clan based on it. It's where we are. On the way back. Jason thought silently in his heart. But he also knew that the Saint clan's information was extremely precious, and the other party couldn't tell it easily. If he wanted to ask, he had to have a good entry point. It's a pity that the Warrender family is too powerful. If it were an ordinary family, even a family with a peak sun god, Jason could directly come to the door to catch the other party and ask, but the 3 major families that control Thunder Island are too terrifying. Before finding out the details of the other party, Jason couldn't act rashly. Sir, this restaurant in front is good, why don't we go in and have a look? Just as Jason was thinking about it, Lontas's shout suddenly came from the side. Lontas, you just know how to eat. Don't you see that the master is thinking about something? Chi-Ji couldn't help but yelled. Among the 5 people under Jason, Chi-Ji has been the leader since he was the first to advance to the peak of the sun god. Beside Jason, Chi-Ji also plays a kind of butler role. Drink, Longta suddenly stopped talking. Restaurant? Jason looked up and saw a luxuriously decorated restaurant in front of him. There was also a redbud flower on the restaurant's sign. Apparently, it is also the property of the Volland family. It's rare to come to Thunder Island. Since Longtas wants to eat, let's go in and he will pay later. Jason said with a smile. Haha, I'll do it. You can just order later, you're welcome. Following Jason's instructions, Longtas's face suddenly showed a smile again. A group of people pushed the door open and went in. When Jason and the other 6 came in, they were immediately greeted by waiters from the restaurant. Jason glanced at the waiter. The waiter in this restaurant turned out to be a powerful star god. It is not easy to see the powerful Xingyao celestial god as a waiter in other places, but in Thunder Island, Xingyao celestial god can be seen everywhere. There is nothing strange about the fact that the waiter is the star god. 6 of you, please follow me. The waiter walked inside with a smile on his face and led the 6 Jasons. In the middle of the restaurant is a tall tree. The leaves are dotted with stars and are extremely beautiful. Looking up along the branches, this restaurant is divided into 2 and 3 floors in addition to the lobby on the first floor. Give us the best private room and introduce us to some of your signature dishes. Longtas walked directly towards the stairs while raising a loud voice. Sorry guys, our private rooms on the 2nd and 3rd floors are all full, and there are only seats in the lobby on the 1st floor. The waiter had an apologetic look on his face. What? There are only seats in the lobby on the 1st floor? Longta's eyes suddenly widened. Are you still worried that we can't pay? No, it's not 6, it's just that it's really full, but don't worry, the dishes are the same no matter where you sit, the waiter explained. No, there is no private room, sir, let's go to the next one. Longtas shook his head and left. Forget it, Rontas, we are here to eat anyway, not to see the environment. Jason said. The waiter immediately led the 6 Jasons to a seat by the window, and the 6 Jasons sat down. The waiter took out a book listing various delicacies, and he put the book on the table with a smile. 6 of you, after you have ordered the dishes, just greet me directly. After saying this, the waiter stepped aside. Naturally, this menu was the first to fall into Jason's hands. This is really expensive. Jason flipped through it a few times and saw several dishes that were quite expensive. The cheapest among them cost 10,000 divine stones, and most of them cost tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Even hundreds of thousands of sacred stones, which were relatively cheap at the front, Jason continued to flip through. After about half of the page, the price of the dishes immediately appeared in the millions. And on the last page, the price of a dish was as high as tens of millions. Shark fins from the Xingyao god-level blood pattern thunder shark. Caviar from the upper spiritual god-level snow silk fish. Seeing the ingredients at these prices, Jason couldn't help but sigh. No matter what level of the mythical beast, as long as if you have money, you can eat it. You order it, I'll do whatever you want. After reading it, Jason shook his head and handed the menu directly to Longtas, who had been looking at it for a long time. Haha, let me take a look. I haven't seen the dishes from Thunder Island before. Longtas took it over excitedly, and then shouted, wow, these are all seafood feasts. Come on, give me one of this, and this, all of them, this is good, have a plate too. Rontas flipped through the menu and ordered 7 or 8 dishes in the blink of an eye. By the time he finished flipping through all the recipes, there were almost 30 of them. Well, I've finished ordering. You can order whatever you want to eat. Longtas handed the menu to Chi-Ji and the others. "Forget it, let's not order it." Chi-Ji and the others looked at Longtas with a wry smile. When Longtas ordered it casually, there were already many customers around who couldn't help but look over. Here, customers who eat on the first floor usually only order a few dishes, so come here and try something new. After all, the prices of the dishes here are still very expensive, and there is no way they order them as randomly as Longtas. "You're welcome, I'll treat you to today's meal," Longtas shouted loudly. Soon, the waiter went down with the menu. The 28 dishes that Longtas ordered before, plus 3 bottles of wine, cost a total of 20 million divine stones. Jason couldn't help but click his tongue. 20 million divine stones, this is equivalent to the price of 2 starry gods. Ordinary people, even those who are powerful in the early stage of the sun god, are reluctant to spend such a small amount of money to have a meal. This can be seen from the envious eyes of people at the tables next to it. Fortunately, the combined assets of Jason and the 6 of them are not huge, so naturally they don't care much about this. After a while, some dishes were served, and Jason and the others also enjoyed these exquisite dishes. "Well, it's delicious, not bad." Longtas was eating, making sounds of enjoyment from his mouth. This Longtas everyone was amused by his expression and tone. As the dishes came one after another, the table was quickly filled with dishes. Fortunately, the table for Jason and the 6 of them was big enough to accommodate them. The dishes ordered by these people must cost at least tens of millions. It's really luxurious, tens of millions? Have you seen that plate of golden crabs? One golden crab on the menu costs 1 million sacred stones. 6 of them are 600. 10,000, tens of millions is not enough. Many guests nearby secretly looked at Jason and his group at the table, and Jason even heard a few people talking in low voices. But at this moment, boom! A huge roar sounded from the second floor of the restaurant, and everyone in the restaurant was shocked. Jason also looked up and saw a huge roar suddenly coming from the private room on the second floor. It shattered and a figure flew out from it. Huh! Immediately after the figure, a big man wearing black blood-patterned armor rushed out, and the sword in his hand fell like lightning. Bang! The sound of weapons clashing sounded, and the first figure fell heavily to the first floor, smashing a table into pieces. The 2 guests who were eating at the table flew away in a hurry, with annoyance on their faces. "Jimmy, you will definitely die today." The big man's angry voice sounded, and behind him, a group of soldiers wearing black blood-patterned armor came out one after another from the box. "It's the patrol team from Thunder Island. Why did they start fighting in this restaurant? What's going on?" Many people looked at the group of soldiers wearing black blood-patterned armor in surprise, with a look on their faces. Surprised. "Jimmy?" Jason's table of 6 people didn't move at all, but their brows furrowed. The first figure was shot down very quickly, but with the eyesight of Jason and the others, they still saw that the person shot down turned out to be an acquaintance of theirs, the blonde and fair-skinned young man Jimmy who came to Thunder Island on the Muya Chamber of Commerce ship. "Bozak, I didn't expect you to become a warrior on Thunder Island." A voice full of resentment rang out from the gravel below the restaurant. Jimmy stood up, his whole body in embarrassment, and a trace of blood slipped from the corner of his mouth. The clothes on his body were already in tatters. "Haha, it would be fine if you didn't come to Thunder Island. I didn't expect you to come to Thunder Island and bump into me. God is really wise. It seems that even God wants you to die." The burly man came from air. Lu Feilua had excitement on his face, while the 7 or 8 teammates behind him were looking at it with their arms folded and smiling. Jimmy gritted his teeth, with a trace of hatred and despair in his eyes. "What's going on? Who did it in this restaurant?" At this moment, a stern low voice sounded, and a group of soldiers walked out of the restaurant and asked sternly. These soldiers are obviously the guards of this restaurant. They also wear black blood-patterned armor and belong to the Thunder Island Army. Although the restaurant Jason and the others entered is in the outer city, and the streets of the outer city do not restrict fighting, but hands are not allowed in places like restaurants. Hearing the roaring sound of fighting here, the faces of the restaurant guards were full of anger. However, after seeing the big man who took action, the anger on the face of the leading guard suddenly subsided. "Captain Bozak, why is it you? What's going on?" the guard said with a smile on his face. Obviously, they are both warriors of Thunder Island, and they are naturally familiar with each other. "Xiao Luo, it's nothing. I met an old enemy. Don't worry about it. I understand the rules. I will compensate for all the losses in the restaurant," the big man said. When the restaurant guards heard this, they all stepped aside, obviously not prepared to care about this matter. Seeing this scene, many guests in the restaurant sighed. It was really unlucky to offend the island protectors on Thunder Island. There was no room for reasoning. Bozak immediately looked at Jimmy in front of him, and slowly moved forward with his sword in hand. With a hint of ferocity at the corner of his mouth, he sneered, "Jimmy, no one can save you today." However, before he could finish his words, "Gee." At this moment, a sneer sounded, "What's going on in this Thunder Island restaurant? Everything you eat is not safe at all. How can people eat it when it's such a mess? It's really unpalatable." Jason's voice echoed in the restaurant. Suddenly, all the other guests in the restaurant focused their attention. And Jimmy also saw the 6 Jasons. His heart, which was originally filled with despair, was once again ignited with a glimmer of hope. Because of the excitement, the whole body could not help but tremble. "That's right, what the hell? What kind of garbage restaurant is this? Not only can't you eat well, but it can also be life-threatening. TSK. I've always heard that Thunder Island is extremely safe. Before I came here, there's no need to worry about it in public places. No. Thinking of it is completely fart." Longtiz's loud voice also sounded. "Yes, it is true. Although the two people have a grudge, as patrol soldiers, they directly take revenge in public places. Who will dare to come in the future?" After this big man's commotion, almost everyone in the restaurant, after stopping to eat, naturally everyone was very dissatisfied. Now when they heard someone talking, they all started talking in a low voice. The guards in the restaurant and Bozak suddenly looked ugly. The rules of Thunder Island strictly prohibit fighting in public places. Once violated, you will be severely punished. Although this is not an inner city, the rules are not as strict as those in the inner city. But as a law enforcement officer, he openly kills people. If word spreads, it will naturally have an impact on a group of them. It may be as light as a punishment. Severe cases may even be life-threatening. After all, if you break the rules of Thunder Island, who will dare to do business in the future? Guys, it's our fault that it affects everyone's meal, but we are chasing key criminals, and as patrol soldiers, it is naturally our duty to do so. When everyone here pays the bill, I will ask the restaurant to give everyone a 20% discount. I, Bozak, will pay for the money that this restaurant loses due to the discount. What do you think? The big man said with cupped hands. Everyone present immediately fell silent. After all, as bystanders, they were unwilling to do evil to the patrol soldiers. Being able to get a 20% discount was considered a free profit. This was the mentality of passers-by. "Haha, that's so generous, but do you think Grandpa will care about your dirty money?" Longtiz shouted with bared teeth. "Jimmy, come here. Today I want to see if Thunder Island is really as safe as the outside world says. Is it just a lie? Just now it was a public revenge, and now it has become a pursuit. Is it possible? This patrol soldier can go up and kill anyone he doesn't like, and in the end, he calls it chasing the criminal?" Jason sneered. Several adults. Jimmy glanced at Bozak hatefully and walked towards where the 6 Jasons were. At this moment, everyone present understood that this group of people only came forward because they knew each other. Bozak looked at Jimmy's figure and couldn't help but want to take action several times, but finally endured it. "Captain, what should we do now?" The 7 or 8 patrol soldiers on the second floor flew down from midair and spoke with gloomy expressions. "Captain Bozak, this is hard to handle. You can't do anything anymore. If you do, I won't be able to explain it to my superiors." The person in charge of the restaurant's guard also said through his spiritual consciousness. Bozak also understood the seriousness of the matter. The muscles on his face twitched. He glanced at Jason and the others coldly and sneered, "Guys, be careful. On Thunder Island, fighting is not allowed in public, but you are not so lucky outside. Let's go." After saying that, Bozak said calmly, and the 7 or 8 soldiers behind him all looked at Jason and the others coldly, and then left one after another. Okay, it's okay. Please feel free to eat. When the time comes to check out, I will give you a 20% discount. The person in charge of the restaurant came out to explain, and then arranged for someone to repair the damaged ones. 2 people at the table were served a few more dishes, and then they all left one by one. "Lord Jason, sirs, thank you very much this time." Jimmy used his divine power to reassemble a set of clothes. The scars on his face gradually disappeared, and he sat with Jason and the others, saying with great gratitude, "If Jason and the others weren't here this time, I'm afraid no one would say anything if he died. Why are you so polite? We have been on the same boat after all. If you hadn't been there to relieve our boredom on the way, I, Lontas, would have been bored to death." Lontas said with a smile. Among all the people on board the Muya Chamber of Commerce's ship, Jimmy should be considered the one with the best and most familiar relationship with Jason and the others because he sat with them from the beginning. With this kind of relationship, it is natural that he cannot ignore death. But adults, you should also be careful. This Bozak will never give up. I'm afraid it will cause you trouble when the time comes. Jimmy said sincerely. Won't you give up? Humph, I, Lontas, am not afraid of him. If you dare to take action outside, I will slap him to death. Lontas coldly snorted, and then looked at Jason with a flattering smile. Sir, you're right. Jason smiled hoarsely, but his face also became serious. A thought quietly passed through his heart, and he couldn't help but smile solemnly. In this Thunder Island, it is necessary to calm down the troubles, but if the other party goes too far, there will be a war. It's just the last game. Jason was not afraid at all. Although Thunder Island was terrifying, with the strength of his 6 people, if the other party was really unwilling to give up, the worst he could do was to expand the sword formation of the gods, plus his 6 people, even Ri Yao. There is nothing to be afraid of when the invincible strong man comes. At the same time, Jason also had an idea in his mind. If he used this to lure out the 3 major families on Thunder Island, it might be an opportunity. At this moment, at a corner outside the restaurant, Bozak and his group had not left yet, looking coldly at the door of the restaurant. Huh. In the distance, 6 people suddenly appeared. Each of these 6 people had an astonishing aura on their bodies. They were also wearing black blood-patterned armor, but the black armor of patrolling soldiers like Bozak seemed to be frosted, without any luster, but the black armor of these 6 people is extremely dazzling. At the same time, the blood patterns on their armor are also more vivid, as if they are alive and flowing continuously. In front of the 6 strong men, there was an ordinary patrol soldier, and a group of 7 people landed in front of Bozak and the others. Lord Ace, I'm sorry to trouble you this time. The leader of the 6 people was a white-haired old man. When Bozak saw him, he immediately stepped forward and said respectfully. Although Bozak seemed rude, he was actually very thoughtful. Since Jason and his group dared to challenge his authority, they were obviously very powerful. Therefore, after coming out, he immediately sent his team members to carry out rescue operations to avoid any accidents. Bozak, who was the other party? How strong is it? The white-haired old man said calmly, and he had the aura of a superior person. Obviously his status was not low. Lord Ace, there are 6 of them in total, including my enemy, there are 7. As for their strength, they all seem to be at the peak of the Moonlight God. But looking at the food they eat, I suspect that some of them are hiding their strength. That's why I invite you, sir, to come over. Bozak said respectfully. 7? The white-haired old man nodded. Don't worry, no matter who they are, I will let them know the consequences of being arrogant on Thunder Island. Sir, if you take action, you will be able to catch them. After the meeting is over, we just go to Thunder Star and have a good meal. Box immediately laughed. These 5 people are the 5 elite strongmen among the patrol warriors on Thunder Island. The leading old man is a commander. Such a team can only be found in Thunder Island. They will only be dispatched after a major situation occurs on the island. All 5 team members are in the early stage of the Sun God. As for the leader, the old man is in the middle stage of the Sun God. This is already the top of the warrior level. With them taking action, there will be no problem. Haha, there's no need to eat. The white-haired old man smiled calmly. I'm helping you, this time, for the sake of your elder brother. I won't do it next time. After that, the group of people stopped talking and waited quietly for Jia Sen and their appearance. In the restaurant, Jason and his group came to the end of their meal. Come on, let's go back. After the group paid, they walked out of the restaurant. Sir, they are coming out. In a corner of the 2nd floor of the restaurant, a patrol soldier saw this scene and immediately sent a message outside. Master Jason, let's be careful. I don't think Bozak will give up easily. He might ambush us at the door of the restaurant. Jimmy's spiritual consciousness said. Don't be afraid, Jimmy, just come closer to us. Jason had a calm expression on his face. The group of people walked out of the restaurant and were greeted by the sea breeze, which made them feel refreshed. But Jason and the others couldn't help but frown. On both sides of the wide street at the exit, the 7 or 8 black-armored and blood-striped troops didn't leave at all. They were waiting there quietly. When they saw the 7 Jasons going out, they couldn't help but frown. They quickly gathered around, and these 7 or 8 people immediately blocked Jason from the exit of the restaurant, and also blocked other people around him. Are you just breaking the rules on Thunder Island? Behind the 7 or 8 black-armored and blood-striped warriors, 5 strong men with astonishing auras walked out. Just the armor they wore was like you can see how extraordinary they are. Did we break the rules? Jason couldn't help but laugh, and laughed angrily. Who are you? You spit blood when you open your mouth. Who is breaking the rules? I think you don't know. Jason glanced at the group in front of him. People, these 7 or 8 patrolling soldiers were obviously only at the peak of the Moonlight God, and there was no basis for it at all. However, the aura exuding from the 5 old men in front of them made Jason and the others a little surprised. At this moment, what happened at the door of the restaurant immediately attracted the attention of pedestrians on the street. Adults immediately gathered around to watch. The guests eating in the restaurant also did not care about eating. Through the restaurant's glass watching. I just said that after offending the patrol soldiers, the guy named Bozak just wouldn't let it go. Unexpectedly, these people were ambushed as soon as they left the restaurant. Looking at the dishes they ordered just now, they obviously have some backgrounds. I don't know if I will be able to escape this disaster. Escape this disaster? Are you kidding me? You didn't look at the 5 masters wearing shiny black armor. Those are the elite warriors of Thunder Island, only those who are strong in the early stage of the Sun God can join. No matter what background these guys have, if they offend the patrol soldiers on Thunder Island, they will definitely die. What? A strong Sun God becomes a warrior? This no matter it is everyone in the restaurant or on the street was talking about it, and the tourists who knew the elite warriors revealed the identities and strengths of the 5 strong men, which caused many people to exclaim. This Thunder Island elite warrior. It only appears in times of major crisis. It is usually rare to see it on the street, attracting people to wait and see. It is true that their strength is too amazing to the outside world. The strong man of the sun god is a prestigious figure no matter where he is. His identity and status are extremely noble, even in this sea of thunder. A strong man from the sun god is enough to be the bandit leader of an island. With dozens of ships and thousands of people under his command, there is no problem at all. But on this thunder island, he can only be a warrior. But it is unbearable. Although they are elite warriors, they usually do not need to patrol and do not have many restrictions. They are only dispatched when something major happens on Thunder Island, but the elite warriors are still warriors after all. Letting the sun gods do it is an invisible shock in itself. No matter who is disobeying the rules, I now suspect that you are suspected of harming Thunder Island. If you are captured one by one, there may be a way to survive. If you resist, we will kill without mercy. An elite soldier shouted coldly. Shoot to kill? Jason's eyebrows suddenly rose and his eyes were cold. I'm leaving now, let's see who dares to stop me. Let's go, he said. Jason and his group walked directly forward, not even looking at the 7 or 8 patrol soldiers and 5 elite soldiers who had gathered around. Want to leave? You are disobeying law enforcement. Stop. The 7 or 8 patrol soldiers had already disliked Jason and the others when they were in the restaurant, but Captain Bozak asked them to leave. They had to leave, and now they could finally take action. No matter how many people there were, a group of 8 people rushed towards the 7 Jasons in an instant. In their opinion, Jason and the others were just the moonlight gods, and even if they were dealt with by the 8 of them, they would be completely defeated. It was enough, not to mention that there were 5 elite warriors behind them to help them raid the formation. You are looking for death. Seeing a patrol soldier's weapon falling towards Jason, Rontas, who was walking behind, suddenly took a step forward. A huge roar roared from his mouth, and a terrible flame, the power spread violently outward along his body. Bang! The 8 patrolling warriors moved forward quickly, and were immediately blocked by the terrifying fire power released by Longdas. The flame power released by Longdas formed a ball at the moment, and the 8 patrolling warriors it is imprisoned on the surface of this sphere. What? How is that possible? In an instant, each of the 8 patrol warriors at the peak level of the Moonlight God were shocked. They roared and wanted to escape from the shackles of this space, but no matter how they moved, their bodies could not move. It was as if it was fixed by cement and it was difficult to move at all. Not good. The expressions of the 5 elite warriors suddenly changed. From the breath released by Longtas, they felt the power of Sunlight God. Death. Longtas shouted loudly, and a void of flame power spurted out of his body again, passing by the 8 imprisoned patrol soldiers like lightning. Pung! Pung! The 8 patrol soldiers suffered heavy blows at the same time, their heads exploded, and the divine chains of laws were scattered on the ground. All the tourists on both sides of the wide street in front of the restaurant and in the restaurant who watched this scene were stunned. The streets that were originally bustling with discussions were now silent, and everyone looked at this scene in disbelief. 8 patrol warriors at the peak of the Moonlight God, killed all with one move? What kind of strength does this have? At the corner in the distance, the expressions of the white-haired old man and Bozak, who were always smiling and watching all this silently, also changed. Sure enough, this group of people has hidden their strength, and among them there is actually a powerful sun god. Bozak's face was as dark as water, and he gritted his teeth. The 8 patrol soldiers were all his subordinates. How could he not be angry? Kill them. At the door of the restaurant, the faces of the 5 elite soldiers also turned extremely livid. The other party actually killed 8 patrol soldiers in front of them, so how could they not be angry? Boom! 5 strong men from the early stage of the sun god took action at the same time. 3 of them rushed towards Longdas in lightning speed, while the other 2 rushed towards the remaining Jason 6. Kill, 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 leave no one alive, dare to kill patrol soldiers on Thunder Island, unforgivable. Astonishing roars resounded throughout the world, and the power emanating from the 5 early sunlight gods made everyone present extremely incomparable. The discoloration is shocking. These guys are really reckless. They killed 8 patrol soldiers without mercy. Now, no matter how strong they are, they can't escape death. Someone secretly sighed for Jason and the others. They can't do it now. Tidy. The 5 strong men in the early stage of the sun god were like lightning, and they came in front of Jason and his party in an instant. Jason looked at the ferocious and angry 5 people with cold eyes. His face was calm without any expression, only a cold cry. A light drink came from his mouth. Kill. As soon as the word kill came out, the temperature of the entire space seemed to suddenly drop by dozens of degrees. Haha, die. The aura on Lantis's body surged again, and a huge warhammer suddenly appeared in his hand. The warhammer swung and swept directly towards the 3 people in front of him. This warhammer seemed slow, but in fact it was extremely fast. The weapons in the hands of the 3 early sunlight god masters who took action first had not yet stabbed Lantis, but the warhammer in his hand came to the opponent first. What? The 3 people exclaimed at the same time, trying to escape, but a vast power of space law spread out from the warhammer in Lantis' hand. The 3 people suddenly discovered in horror that they could not escape. They opened their eyes and could only stare in horror, watching as the warhammer in Ranta's hand hit their heads hard. Pung! Pung! The huge warhammer directly swept over the heads of the 3 people, like a hammer hitting a watermelon, and the heads of the 3 people exploded directly. On the other hand, the 2 early-stage sunlight gods had already arrived in front of Jason and the others, waving swords in their hands, but before they could take action. Tisk! The void in front of them suddenly tore open a dark crack, and immediately 2 black lights burst out from it, piercing directly between their eyebrows. Pung! The 2 big heads also exploded, and for a while, 5 magic chains of laws were scattered on the ground. In the void, a cold-faced figure walked out, his eyes silent, and quietly retreated behind Jason. It was none other than the Hades Emperor, one of the veterans of the Shadow-Killing Alliance. From the time when the 5 early sunlight god masters took action until they all fell, the whole process took less than a second, which was incredibly fast. Everyone who was originally shocked because Rantas killed 8 patrolling soldiers with one move opened their eyes wide, their mouths opened wide, and they were so horrified that they almost didn't scream. These were 5 powerful sunlight gods, not 5 moonlight gods, nor 5 pigs. But in front of this group of people, they all fell like pigs in the blink of an eye. Such a strong shock made them everybody could not help but tremble. Oh my God, this unbelievable! A series of exclamations sounded, and the entire street was stunned at this moment. What is the origin of this group of 7 people? It's a big deal now. The thought came to everyone's mind involuntarily at the same time. The 5 sunlight gods are just strong in the early stage. They are so weak that they dare to come up and die. Jason and the others did not take these little people into their eyes. The strong men in the early days of the sun god were like mountains for ordinary people to look up to, but for them, they were insignificant people. The entire street was silent at the moment. Everyone was stunned and looked at Jason and the others in a daze, obviously not expecting this ending. It's too scary. What is the origin of this group of people? How dare they act recklessly on Thunder Island? It's a big deal now. Everyone around them was shocked. They all moved away one by one, as if Jason and his group at the door of the restaurant were gods of plague. But when they looked at Jason and his group, in addition to shock and fear, they also had a hint of admiration and worship. In the world of gods, worship the strong. This group of people is not simple. Each of them seems to be nothing, but the burst of strength is so terrifying. That burly man killed 8 moonlight gods with one move. I thought he was quite powerful at first. A strong person in the early stage of sunlight god, who didn't expect that he would kill 3 strong people in the early stage of sunlight god with one move. I'm afraid only a strong person in the middle stage of Sunlight God can do this, right? Middle stage Sunlight God? What do you know? It's so easy. To kill 3 sunshine gods in the early stage, I am afraid that they must be at least the peak of the sunshine gods in the middle stage, and may even be stronger. Stronger than the peak of the sunshine gods in the middle stage? Wouldn't that, and he is not the only one in the group who is that strong. Didn't you see the strong man standing behind the black-haired young man? No one paid attention to him before, but he killed 2 elite warriors with the same move. I'm afraid he is not weaker than that burly man. There was a lot of discussion in the whole street, and many people looked at Lontas and the others with admiration. No matter where in the world of gods, strong people are always easy to be respected. Let's go. Faced with the shocked eyes of everyone, Jason's expression was extremely calm, and he spoke calmly. The group of people immediately walked forward, and the crowd that had originally surrounded them suddenly gave way to a spacious passage. It's really disgusting, Bozak. It's all your fault at this moment. The white-haired old man at the corner was trembling and looking at Bozak beside him, and at the same time, he was staring at Jason and his party in shock. The back of the person, the 5 subordinates of the early Sunlight God, died like this. The white-haired old man was so heartbroken that he didn't know what to say. And this is not just the death of his subordinates. If only Bozak's 8 Moonlight God patrol soldiers died, then there might be room for change. However, it was the elite warriors who died. The nature is completely different. Although the strong people in the early days of the Sun God can only be elite warriors on Thunder Island, their status is also extremely noble. Every elite warrior is registered in the 3 major families. Enjoying a lot of benefits, everyone is extremely precious and cannot perish easily. Now that they were all killed, this was not only a matter for the 5 elite warriors, but also related to the face of the entire Thunder Island. It can be said that the moment those 5 people were killed, this matter was no longer his. It's under control. Lord Ace. Bozak was also panicking. He just wanted to kill Jimmy and teach Jason and the others a lesson, but he didn't expect that it would cause such a big fuss. At this moment, he was panicking. No idea at all. Why are you panicking? Things are getting serious now, and I can't hold it back. Hurry up and find your elder brother. When the elders ask, do you know what to say? Ace finished hastily and hurried forward. Go. Lord Ace. What are you? Bozak asked in panic. I'm going to stop them. Why don't you go find your brother quickly? It's too late and no one can save you. Ace said with a livid face. Yes. Yes. Bozak nodded repeatedly, and then hurriedly flew towards the inland location of Thunder Island. I was hurt badly by this kid this time. Ace's face turned livid. The next moment, a bloody cylinder suddenly appeared in his hand, and divine power penetrated into it. Boo! A bloody light soared into the sky from the bloody cylinder. When it flew to the highest point, pong! The bloody light exploded, and a huge roar spread far away. At the same time, the bloody light instantly it rose sharply, and in an instant it was as if a dazzling bloody sun appeared in the sky. The dazzling bloody sun hung high in the sky, making all the powerful men on Thunder Island clearly visible. Everywhere in the streets of Thunder Island, there are teams of patrol soldiers patrolling back and forth. When they heard the noise, they all looked up. When they saw the bloody sun, their expressions changed drastically. This is the bloody summoning order. This is the summoning order in emergency situations on Thunder Island. Only elite team captains and strong men who have reached the mid-level Sunlight God level or above can possess and release it. As soon as this bloody summoning order comes out, this means that all the soldiers on Thunder Island have entered a state of combat readiness, and nearby patrolling soldiers go to the scene of the incident and prepare to fight. In the million-year history of Thunder Island, there have been very few occurrences of this bloody summons, especially since Thunder Island became famous, and the most recent one was hundreds of thousands of years ago. Huh? Jason and the others naturally saw the bloody summons, and at this moment, stop, everyone. A roar of thunder resounded, and at the same time, a figure blocked Jason's way like lightning. In front of a group of them, I am Ace, the guard commander of Thunder Island and the captain of the elite team. Now I suspect that you are suspected of harming Thunder Island, and you have killed my soldiers on Thunder Island at will. This is a heinous crime. I advise you, just go and get caught, follow me back for investigation, or you will bear the consequences. Ace's cold voice sounded, his eyes were sharp, but he was extremely uneasy in his heart. The previous performance of Longtas and Underworld Emperor was too shocking. They killed 5 of their own team members so easily. Even as a mid-stage sun god, he dare not say that he could do it easily. But Ace can't let Jason and the others leave. This incident was caused by him, and it has become a big deal now. If he lets Jason and the others leave without stopping him, he will face extremely severe punishment from the 3 major families. He was even in danger of falling, and if Jason and the others were captured, although the punishment would be necessary, death would not be certain. Whoosh! 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 At the same time that Ace appeared, in the distance, groups of patrolling soldiers came quickly to see Ace. Everyone is extremely respectful. Lord Commander. Teams of patrolling soldiers seem to be facing a formidable enemy. Hundreds of people gathered in an instant, and there were a large number of soldiers coming from a distance. Surround these thugs who killed our Thunder Island soldiers. Ace shouted sharply. As he finished speaking, a large group of patrol soldiers who had arrived surrounded Jason and the others. When the tourists who were around before saw such a scene, they all backed down one by one. Looking at these many patrolling soldiers, Jason couldn't help but frown slightly. You guys, follow me back to the headquarters. If you disobey, I will kill you. Ace's cold voice sounded again, and as his words fell, more and more black-armored and blood-striped warriors gathered slowly. Come forward. Is this the style of your Thunder Island? You don't care about everything. Everyone comes up with bloody mouths? A sneer appeared at the corner of Jason's mouth. It seems that you are unwilling to surrender. I will give you one last chance to surrender. There may be a glimmer of hope, otherwise, you will be killed without mercy. Ace said coldly, feeling the arrival of more and more soldiers around him. He also had confidence in his heart. You talk so much nonsense, is it reasonable for your people to take action first? If you keep talking nonsense, I will kill you as well. Longtas shouted at Ace with a fierce look in his eyes. In that case, hold them for me. If they resist, shoot them without mercy. Ace's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he shouted loudly. The surrounding black-armored and blood-patterned warriors were obviously ready. The moment Ace gave the order, all the black-armored and blood-patterned warriors immediately moved. A group of people shot at the 7 Jasons like lightning, with various lights shining on the weapons in their hands. The killing intent was awe-inspiring, and it was obvious that he had no intention of capturing Jason and the others alive. When he made a move, they were all killing moves, preparing to kill Jason and the others here. Boom! A stream of terrifying energy suddenly shot up into the sky. More than 100 black-armored and blood-patterned warriors who had arrived were like locusts, rushing towards Jason and the others from all directions. Jason's face suddenly darkened. He shouted loudly, "Do it! Haha, get out of here!" As Jason finished speaking, Longtas was the first to walk out, and swiped the large area in front of him with his warhammer. Boom! With Longtas as the center, a burst of flame power suddenly burst out from the warhammer in his hand, sweeping across a large area in front of him. In front of him, there were more than 20 black-armored and blood-striped warriors, swept by the divine power of this flame. Each of these black-armored and blood-striped warriors has the strength of the Moonlight God. They are all famous in the outside world. However, under the sweep of Longtas, they look like a 2-meter-tall giant holding a weapon. Facing dozens of unarmed babies, under his sweeping blow, these more than 20 black-armored and blood-striped warriors let out shrill roars, their bodies cracked and burned, and at the same time, their entire bodies seemed to be driven by high-speed vehicles. As if a heavy truck hit them, they were thrown out one by one and hit hard in the distance. In front of Jason, Rontas was blocking him. Behind Jason, Bahem, who had not moved, stood up. Clang! The sword he had always carried on his back was finally unsheathed at this moment. The sword as long as a person was shaking in the void. The light in Bashem's eyes skyrocketed, and the shadow of an earth-yellow sword that was more than 10 feet high appeared in the void. A terrifying aura filled the air, and tiny space cracks appeared out of thin air at the blade. Death! A roar like thunder resounded throughout the world. Bahem held a long knife and slashed at the many black-armored and blood-striped warriors in front of him. Boom! In the direction of the long sword, the entire sky above and around Jason and the others was covered by this huge sword light. The sword light containing terrifying divine power rose into the sky, and everyone was affected by the huge sword light. The black-armored and blood-patterned warriors who were hit were all thrown in all directions, vomiting blood, and their armors were cracked inch by inch and no longer existed. The most pitiful ones were the 20 or so who happened to be cut by the sword. The black-armored warrior with blood patterns was directly cut open by the sword light containing terrifying energy, turning into a rain of blood all over the sky. After killing countless people, the sword light rushed directly to the sky, tearing open a huge black hole in the void, which appeared in the eyes of all Thunder Island tourists. In an instant, all the more than 100 black-armored and blood-striped warriors who rushed towards Jason and his party were dead and injured, with blood and residual limbs spraying out, making everyone terrified. What? This old man is also a strong sun god? Seeing this scene, Ace's eyes trembled when he looked at Bahem. The other party already had 2 strong men who were at least in the middle stage of the sun god, but they unexpectedly, Bahem came out of thin air and was no weaker than the previous 2. Ace's horrified eyes wandered over Chi-Ji and Thuras next to Jason. Could there be a hidden peerless powerhouse among these 2 people? Not good. But when Ace was frightened, his eyes suddenly caught sight of Rontas wielding a giant hammer and charging towards him. Is this the order from you? Come and die. The flesh on Rontas's face trembled, his mouth opened wide, revealing a pair of yellow teeth, and he hit Ace with a hammer. The terrifying divine power boiled, and a suffocating aura surged directly towards Ace. Lord Commander! A dozen black-armored and blood-striped warriors beside Ace rushed to Ace one by one, raising their weapons at the same time, trying to block Longta's attack. Death! Longta's eyes turned cold, pong. The giant hammer hit hard, as if it hit the water, and an invisible wave rippled along the place where the hammer hit. Pfft! The dozen or so black-armored and blood-striped warriors who tried to resist were directly turned into a pile of blood and mud by this terrifying force. The giant hammer in Longtas's hand continued to be powerful, and he hit Eni hard again. Sri Lanka. Too arrogant, you really think I'm afraid of you? Ace's eyes were fierce, and a black spear suddenly appeared in his hand. The black spear shook in the void, and instantly turned into a black angry dragon, roaring towards Rontas. Die! Ace's angry roar resounded throughout the world, and the aura of divine power in the middle stage of the sun god was dissipated unbridled. The terrifying power was like a vast ocean, covering the entire neighborhood. Lord Ace has taken action. Then Ace is the captain of the elite team. He is a strong man in the middle stage of the sun god. His strength is extraordinary. I don't know who is stronger or weaker than that big man. All the people were generals. The eyes are focused here. With this little strength, I dare to be so presumptuous. A ferocious smile appeared on Ronta's lips, and the giant hammer in his hand hit the opponent's spear without hesitation. Pung! A dull impact sounded, and Ace felt an irresistible and terrifying force coming along the opponent's giant hammer. He, a strong man in the middle stage of the sun god, was unable to resist at all, and he couldn't hold the spear in his hand. The tiger's mouth exploded, the spear was released, and the whole person was directly blasted into the distance by this huge force, and hit a building not far away. Today, several authors who were training in Shanghai came to Nanjing, and the junior teacher was called out, so you all know Ace was hit by Longta's hammer, and his whole body was thrown heavily, hitting a building not far away. Rumble. A huge roar sounded, and the building exploded and collapsed. Countless figures rushed out and flew into the air. Damn it! The sky was filled with smoke and dust, and a roar rang out from the ruins. Ace rose into the sky, his face was pale, and his body was trembling slightly. Pfft! He spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at Longtas not far away in fear. How could this guy be so strong? Ace's right hand was trembling slightly at the moment, and he was frightened in his heart. With his strength in the middle stage of the sun god, he had never seen any big scenes, but it was the first time for him to encounter such a tragic situation like today. Arrive. He had already used all his strength before, but he was unable to block even one of the opponent's moves. The power of Longtas made Ace's expression tremble and shock. This guy is definitely a peak sun Yao god. Ace gritted his teeth, his face flushed. The strong man who could defeat him with one move was definitely not someone who could do it in the middle stage of the sun Yao god. Only the powerhouses at the peak sun Yao god, only then do you have this strength. Haha, die. Rontas roared and laughed, rumbling towards Ace like a medium tank. Come on, kill him, kill him. Ace turned pale, backed away quickly, and screamed in shock. What about the peak powerhouse of the sun god? Maybe he is no match for him based on his own strength, but if the opponent dares to act arrogantly on Thunder Island, even if his strength reaches the sky, he will definitely die when the masters of the family come. Being able to control Thunder Island and stand in the Sea of Thunder, even Ace, who is a strong mid-level sun god and the leader of the army that protects the island, only knows a little bit about the tyranny of these three major families. That big guy. All the people watching were shocked. With one move, Commander Ace, who was in the middle stage of the sun god, was knocked away. What kind of strength is this? Everyone was shocked. Get out of my way. Longtas rampaged through the streets. The warhammer in his hand was swung, and the divine power of flame spread out continuously. All the black-armored and blood-striped warriors who stood in front of him and tried to resist him were easily hammered into pulp by the giant hammer, unable to resist him at all. Group attack. Another group of patrolling soldiers came from a distance. There were hundreds of them. When they saw Longta's rampant appearance, their expressions changed drastically. Under the command of a captain, these hundreds of people did not dare to come down at all, but launched a collective attack from the sky towards Longta's location. Boom! 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 A series of colorful divine attacks flew towards Longta's from the sky like raindrops, but these raindrops were fatal. Humph! The collective attacks of hundreds of Moonlight God's peak warriors hit Longta's. The divine armor on Ronta's body rippled, and he snorted coldly, raising the flaming hammer high in his hand. It was such a blow towards the hundreds of black-armored and blood-patterned warriors. Bang! The giant flame hammer hit the void, and the void instantly cracked like a mirror, shattering layer by layer, turning into a huge black space crack. The space crack spread layer by layer, rushing towards the hundreds of black-armored blood-stained people. Where the warrior is. No. Run away. Get out of the way. A series of exclamations rang out. The hundreds of black-armored and blood-striped warriors had frightened expressions on their faces, and they flashed around wildly, but the speed at which the cracks in the space spread was so fast. It's too fast. Nearly 40 black-armored and blood-striped warriors were still swept into it. The remaining black-armored and blood-striped warriors who had a chance to escape immediately saw that the 40 black-armored and blood-striped warriors who were swept up all had panic in their eyes and mouths. He let out a miserable scream, and his body was torn into pieces of flesh and blood under the force of this space void, with no bones left. Hiss! A series of gasps sounded, and the 50 or 60 surviving black-armored and blood-striped warriors looked at Longtas as if they were looking at the devil. Although their strength is only at the peak of Yuehui goddess. But there are hundreds of them. A collective attack by hundreds of Yuehui celestial god masters will usually hit the early sunlight celestial god masters and result in serious injuries even if they don't die. Even the middle sunshine celestial god masters will be seriously injured. It would also be unbearable and seriously injured, but it happened to Longtas before. He acted as if nothing was wrong, and instead struck back at random, killing and injuring a large group of his own people. This level of strength frightened the hearts of all the black-armored and blood-patterned warriors. Rontas sneered, just about to continue chasing Nace. A series of piercing sounds could be heard in the distance, and 3 teams of strong men exuding astonishing auras were rushing towards their location like lightning. Boom! There are 6 people in each of these 3 teams, a total of 18 people. Each one of them wears the same armor as Ace. They are the elite warriors, dispatched by Thunder in emergency situations. These elite warriors usually guard the inner city. They didn't go out, but Ace's bloody summons summoned them all. Ace, are you okay? The leaders of the 3 teams asked as their hearts sank when they saw Ace's embarrassed look. Each team of elite warriors has 6 members, 5 of whom are team members, who are all early-stage sunshine gods, and 1 is the captain, who is a mid-stage sunshine god, and is also the leader of the Thunder Island Patrol Warriors. This Ace had the same status as them. He was also a strong person in the middle stage of the sun god, but he was beaten like this. It was obvious that the opponent was far more powerful than they expected. Be careful, that big man should be a strong man at the peak of the sun god. In addition, there are 2 strong men among them who are at least in the middle stage of the sun god. Ace coughed out a mouthful of blood and said hoarsely. The elite warrior who had just arrived, with anger and contempt on his face, had a condensed expression, and his eyes were full of fear when he looked at Longtas. Why, you also want to be indiscriminate? Longtas stopped the giant hammer in his hand, grinned slightly, and shouted coldly. Indiscriminate? Humph, now you know how to beg for mercy? No way, no matter what the cause of the matter is, if you dare to act arrogantly and evil on our Thunder Island, you will definitely die. The 3 elite captains had cold faces, looking at Longtas with a ferocious look. A roar full of hatred came out of his mouth, and the roar was full of murderous intent, as if he wanted to tear Longtas into pieces. Kill them, these people are unpardonable. Let them die with no bones left and no place to bury them. Several other people also roared angrily, with red eyes. It was obvious that they did not listen to Longtas' words at all, and there was no room for change in their expressions. Do it, the leader of the elite team leader roared angrily. Shwa! 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 18 strong sun gods rushed towards Longtas and surrounded him. At the same time, in the distant sky, groups of ordinary patrolling warriors also they came, armed with weapons, and surrounded the entire sky, obviously not giving Jason and the others a chance to escape. What is a peak, Sunyao celestial god? The ants will bite the elephant to death, and with so many people attacking at the same time, no matter how strong he is, there is no possibility of victory. Sir? Chi-Ji looked at Jason in the open space on the street. Jason's eyes turned completely cold. He had already seen that this group of patrol soldiers had no intention of talking about it before or now. On Thunder Island, they have become extremely arrogant. It has been tens of thousands of years, and now they are facing Jason and his group who killed their members. No matter what the cause of the matter is, who is right or wrong, they have only one thought in their hearts, and that is to completely kill Jason and his group who disobeyed them. Over the past countless thousands of years, they have dealt with countless people who have offended them in this way. In that case, Jason's eyes were cold, and there was a sneer at the corner of his mouth. Get ready to kill as much as you want, kill them until they wake up, and let them know who is the wolf and who is the sheep. Jason was indifferent. The words were passed down the street, sending chills to the bones. Shiji, Thuras, Hades' emperor and Bahem, who were standing there and just protecting Jason silently before, also had a cold and fierce light in their eyes. Then let's kill. This was the cry in their hearts. Without Jason's instructions before, they had been suppressing it for a long time. Kill. In the distance, the 18 elite warriors surrounded Longtas and finally launched a ferocious attack. Do it. At the same time, Jason shouted. Buzz. Thousands of chaotic energy spread out and turned into a large formation, instantly covering the entire neighborhood. At this moment, Jason's heart was as cold as iron, and he would no longer show mercy. In the deepest part of Thunder Island, there is a stretch of mountains. However, on top of this mountain range, there are clusters of buildings standing up, forming a stretch of mountain villas. This is where the three major families who control Thunder Island live. At this moment, in a certain mansion in a cluster of buildings in the center, Bozak was looking forward tremblingly. In front of him, a middle-aged man wearing a purple robe was standing there with an indifferent expression. The middle-aged man in purple robe had a stern face, and just standing there was a breathtaking aura spreading out. You know, this is where the Warrant family, the head of the three major families that control Thunder Island, is located. The people who can live here, except for the members of the Warrant family, are the real strong ones. Among the three major families, there is only one kind of person who can wear purple robes, and that is the elders of the three major families. They are also a major support for the three major families to stand in the Thunder Sea and dominate Thunder Island for countless years. Every purple-robed elder is a powerful person at the peak of the sun god. Bozak's eldest brother, Bukai, is the purple-robed elder of the Valend family. This is why Bozak, as a squad leader, was able to recruit Ace and other elite warriors. You mean, this incident was only caused by your wanting to kill Jimmy? Buikai's cold voice sounded. Yes, brother, Jimmy, I told you this before. Bozak had a panic look on his face. Can he not panic? Although the three major families will kill anyone who dares to cause trouble on Thunder Island, no matter who is right or wrong, but he, the initiator, may also face huge punishment from the family afterwards, and may even be killed. Okay, please retreat in peace. As long as I'm here, you'll be fine. Buikai's cold voice sounded, which made Bozak feel slightly calmer. Elder Buikai, the patriarch asked you to come over. At this moment, a waiter's voice came from outside Buikai's door. You can go back in peace first. Buikai nodded to his brother Bozak, and then left his mansion. After a moment, only the sound of strong wind was heard, and a large number of figures were seen flying out of the Warrant family's mansion, and then flying at high speed under the disappearing bloody sun. In the mansions of the other two major families in the mountain range, there were also people. A large number of figures flew out at high speed, and these three teams quickly gathered together in midair. In the sky, the leaders of the three teams met. Each of the three teams was led by two strong men in purple robes. There were 6 people in total, 5 men and 1 woman. These 6 purple-robed elders were from the 3 major families. A true strong man, a figure at the pinnacle of the sun god. The patriarch has said that no matter who is causing trouble this time or what the background is, they must be killed on the spot to rectify the reputation of our Thunder Island. On the side of the Valend family, Buikai said coldly. It seems that our Thunder Island has been peaceful for too long, and someone actually dares to cause trouble. The other 5 purple-robed elders also sneered. Boom. 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 As soon as the words fell, the 6 people led a large number of teams and flew towards the inner city at high speed. Who? The strong wind blew, and the 6 Buikai were flying in front. Feeling the speed of the large number of teams flying behind them, Buikai frowned slightly. Let's go first. Buikai's divine consciousness sent a message to the other 6 people. Suddenly, The speed of Buakai and the other 6 purple-robed elders increased greatly, leaving the team behind them behind in an instant. The speed of these 6 peak-level sun god gods increased to the extreme, and they transformed into 6 phantoms, reaching far away in an instant. On the battlefield outside the city, Jason's large formation was released, instantly covering everyone within a kilometer radius. What's going on? Looking at the semicircle in front of him, it looked like a large white formation covering a large number of blocks. The expressions of some of the black-armored and blood-striped warriors and the large number of tourists who were not enveloped in the surroundings all changed drastically. It's a formation. This is a formation. There is a formation master among them. A strong man familiar with the formation exclaimed. Attack, attack for me. Outside. Because Ace was knocked away before, he was not enveloped by the formation and saw this astonishing formation. Ace immediately yelled at the many black-armored and blood-patterned warriors outside. Suddenly, a large number of black-armored and blood-patterned warriors immediately waved their weapons, and countless dense attacks roared towards the formation formed by the chaotic energy. But just when their attack was about to hit the formation, the chaos formation suddenly expanded. Bang! 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 Countless attacks hit the formation hard, causing the entire formation to shake. Countless ripples continued to ripple on the surface under attack. However, after a moment, the constantly rippling chaotic formation returned to calm. No damage at all. The crazy attacks of a large number of black-armored and blood-patterned warriors failed to break through the formation set up by Jason. What? Ace, many black-armored and blood-patterned warriors, and the surrounding tourists were all shocked. The all-out attacks of so many black-armored and blood-patterned warriors were unable to break through this formation. And when they were extremely shocked, countless strong men were enveloped by the formation. At this moment, there was not much panic on his face. Open it! Many of the black-armored and blood-striped warriors roared angrily. All around them, there was a vast expanse of white. They could not see anything. They could only release their strongest power and slash forward. Boom! Smoke lingered under their bombardment. The energy of chaos continued to surge, but what surprised them was that his full blow could not break the formation. What? The faces of the black-armored and blood-striped warriors who were separated in various places showed shock. They all understood in their hearts that since the range of this formation was so wide, then there are countless people covered, and they are in other places that you can't see. There must be many strong men struggling to break the formation, but under their own full blow, they were still unable to break the formation, which made them all panic. What kind of formation is this? I am a strong man at the peak of the Moonlight Goddess, and there are so many comrades here with me. With one move, even the 4th grade formation will be broken. Only the 5th grade formation can resist it. To withstand the attack of so many of us, is this formation a 5th grade formation? Everyone was filled with shock. In the God realm, those who can set up a 3rd grade formation are already called masters, and 4th grade formations are called masters. Grade 1 is a grandmaster, and there are very few grade 5 formation masters in the entire world of gods. It is difficult to find one. Could it be that there is a grade 5 formation master among this group of people? As soon as this thought came out, everyone present was shocked, but it was just a shock. Although there were no objects around, and he could not break the formation, except for a large number of ordinary black armor and blood patterns, the people trapped in the formation were in addition to the soldiers and some tourists, there are also 3 teams of elite adults. With the strength of their sun gods, it shouldn't be a problem for so many people to break through a 5th grade formation. Many black-armored and blood-patterned warriors had such an idea in their hearts, but when their idea just arose, but before it fell, a black light passed through the void and hit directly between the eyebrows of the black-armored and blood-striped warrior. The head of the black-armored and blood-striped warrior exploded instantly. When he died, his eyes were still wide with fear, and he didn't understand. What exactly happened? Boom. Boom. In other parts of the formation, there were also black rays of light passing by, piercing into the heads of a large number of black-armored and blood-striped warriors. None of those warriors were able to do anything. The reaction was to fall instantly. In the blink of an eye, dozens or hundreds of black-armored and blood-striped warriors fell. It's so easy. A ray of light passed by, and the figure of Emperor Hades appeared in the void. With his strength at the peak of the sun god, it is extremely easy to kill these black-armored and blood-striped warriors who are at the peak of the moonlight god. However, in this large formation, each of those black-armored and blood-striped warriors seems to be headless. Like a fly, but under Jason's control, he could walk through it at will. In this way, the speed at which Hades killed them was simply increased to a terrifying level. Killing them was like blowing a breath, so easy. Simply outrageous. Boom. Kill. In another part of the formation, the 18 elite warriors surrounding Lantas roared. They did not panic at the moment when the formation enveloped them, and they continued to kill. Lantas. The formation that Jason casually arranged was indeed a fifth-grade formation, as those black-armored and blood-striped warriors thought. This was not because Jason did not want to arrange a sixth-grade formation, but that the sixth-grade formation was really it's too terrifying. In the world of gods, the status of formation masters is extremely noble. A fifth-level formation master is enough to cause an earthquake and invite invitations from countless forces. A sixth-grade formation master has been rare in the world of gods for tens of millions of years. It is extremely rare. If Jason really exposed his identity as a sixth-grade formation master, even the 8 great god kings would be alarmed if word spread. This is also the reason why Jason deliberately hides it and cannot use it easily. When we were at the Sword God Sword Tomb, it could also be said that it was the forbidden area of the ancient Sword God. If a sixth-grade formation was used here, everyone would know the identity of Jason's sixth-grade formation master, and I'm afraid it would be a public concern in the entire god realm. Caused an uproar. Under the fifth-level formation, although the 18 elite warriors who are sun gods will also be affected, they can still rely on their powerful spiritual consciousness to lock the opponent's position and attack. Boom. The monstrous murderous intent dispersed, and 18 astonishing forces swept everything, directly tearing a passage through the fifth-grade formation. Wherever it passed, the energy of chaos receded, and many powerful people outside the formation could clearly see these obvious attacks. Die. The faces of these 18 elite warriors showed ferocious killing intent. But before their attacks could land on Lanta's boom, suddenly several terrifying forces struck in the distance, swarming towards all of them. Under this terrifying force, Jason's formation was instantly destroyed, and the area was clearly revealed. Only Chi-Ji and Ba were visible. Shem and Thuras rushed towards the 18 people with indifferent expressions on their faces. The astonishing pressure released from the weapons in their hands caused a huge change in the 18 powerful sunlight gods. These 3 people, a strong sense of crisis arose in the hearts of the 18 of them. Their originally ferocious expressions full of murderous intent were now pale, and their eyes showed a look of extreme fear. No. Regardless of attacking Lantas again, the 18 elite warriors took action in panic one by one. They tried their best to retract the weapons in their hands, trying to intercept the attacks of Chi-Ji and the others. However, it was already too late. Before their weapons could be aimed at Chi-Ji and the others, a folding fan, a long knife, and a big gun were like 3 meteors, instantly slicing across the heads of the 18 people. Pung! 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 A series of explosions sounded, and the heads of the 18 elite warriors exploded in an instant, and the bright divine chains of law were scattered on the ground. This horrifying scene shocked everyone in the outside world who clearly saw the whole process. Everyone's expressions were dull, as if they had seen a ghost. Under the clear gaze of everyone, Chi-Ji and the other 3 took action like lightning. The heads of the 18 elite warriors exploded in an instant, and the divine chains of laws were scattered on the ground. Such a shocking scene shocked everyone present. Those were 18 sun gods, and they all perished like that? The next moment, when everyone was shocked, the entire formation mysteriously disappeared, revealing some of the people among them, the 6 Jasons and some tourists who were unfortunate enough to be enveloped by the formation. It sounds slow, but in fact, the whole process from the time the formation was formed to the time it disappeared took only about a minute, and then the formation disappeared. The only difference from before is that all the hundreds of black-armored and blood-patterned warriors and 18 elite warriors wrapped in the formation died. No, it's impossible. In the distance, the face of Ace, the only surviving elite warrior, changed greatly. Hundreds of black-armored and blood-patterned warriors, 18 sunlight god-level elite warriors, all died in just 1 minute. How is this possible? However, the cruelty of the facts filled Ace's heart with despair. Not only Ace, but more and more black-armored and blood-striped warriors around him were also pale, and they could hardly believe their own eyes. Some ordinary tourists around also had dull expressions, and those tourists who had been shrouded by Jason's formation before and appeared safe and sound, all had pale faces and stepped back far away, the kind of people who had survived the disaster. The feeling makes them still tremble in their hearts. It's terrible. How could these people be so strong? Ace's face turned pale. The development of the matter had far exceeded his expectations. Not far away, the 5 figures of Chi-Ji, Thuras, Bahem, Hades, and Longtas stood there as 5 demon gods. The auras emanating from their bodies made Ace tremble in his heart. There are 5 peak-level sunlight gods. Among the 6 opponents, there are actually 5 peak-level sunshine gods. Ace's head was already blank at this moment, and the corner of his mouth was extremely bitter. As a mid-level sunlight god, he was a strong person. If he still can't see the strength of Chi-Ji and the others, he is simply an idiot. Ace's heart was full of regrets. If he had known that the other party was so powerful, he should not have agreed to Bozak's request in the first place, and he would not have ended up in this uncontrollable situation. But Ace also understood that he must not retreat at this time. Once he retreated, even if Jason and the others didn't kill him, the 3 major families will definitely kill him. Attack me. Don't get close to a group of them. Attack them in groups and kill them. Ace quickly retreated. At the same time, he yelled in surprise and anger. At this moment, a large number of patrolling soldiers had gathered in the sky. The number had already exceeded 1,000. They looked at Jason's group below. Although there was fear in his eyes, there was more of anger. Group attack? Upon hearing Ace's order, countless black-armored and blood-patterned warriors couldn't help but be surprised. More than 1,000 peak moonlight god masters released attacks at the same time. With such huge power, I am afraid that the entire street will sink under this attack, and many ordinary people around will also be affected. Yes. But after being surprised, they still obeyed the order and shouted loudly. Attack! As an order sounded, hundreds of patrol soldiers in the sky waved their weapons. Countless attacks of various colors were like meteors, shaking the void and rushing towards Jason and the others. Boom! 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 Who? 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 In an instant, countless colorful and bright attacks of various colors fell from the sky, and the whole world seemed to collapse at this moment. The combined attack of more than 1,000 peak moonlight gods tore the entire sky into space turbulence, a terrifying scene. It's like the end of the world is coming. No. Get out of the way. On the street, many tourists seemed crazy when they saw the scene. They rose into the sky one by one, flying in all directions like frightened flies. The expression on his face was as frightened as possible. These patrol soldiers are crazy. Many tourists watching from a distance were shocked when they saw this. Everyone's blood was boiling. Such a shocking battle had never been encountered in their long lives. If you don't give up, just kill me, Jason shouted, his eyes cold. Boom. In an instant, Hades' emperor and his entourage rose into the sky one after another, constantly flying through the sky full of attacks. The attacks struck the divine armor on their bodies, causing ripples to appear. The targets of Jason and his group were too big, and they were extremely scattered. Moreover, those patrolling soldiers knew that Jason and the others would dodge when they fell into it, so the attacks were distributed in all areas where their group could fly, which also led to the attacks were not intensive. Although there were more than 1,000 people taking action, only less than 1/10 of them hit Lontas and the others, and this 1/10 was scattered among Jason and the others. Although the armor on the people's bodies was constantly shaking and rippling under the attack, it did not cause much harm to Jason and the others. Boom! Countless attacks blasted into the streets, and the entire streets of Thunder Island collapsed instantly. Shops, restaurants, and hotels collapsed one after another. The ground was so hard that ordinary gods-level powerhouses could not leave traces. At this moment, huge lines appeared. The ravines and cracks look like the end is coming and the earth is falling apart. Hurry up and prepare for the second round of attacks. Seeing that Emperor Hades and his group had withstood the first round of attacks and were about to rush into the patrolling warriors in the sky, Ace's face suddenly changed and he shouted anxiously. Once Hades and the others break into the team, the consequences will be extremely serious. However, the speed of Hades' Emperor and others was too fast. Before their second wave of attacks had time to take action, in addition to Chi-Ji, who was guarding Jason, Hades' Emperor and his 4 people had already rushed into the sky full of patrolling warriors. At this moment, as time goes by, more and more patrol warriors join. The number of patrol warriors over the entire Thunder Island has reached more than 2,000, and they are densely packed, like locusts. Who? The 4 Hades emperors were like hungry wolves that broke into the flock of sheep, killing them wantonly. Boom! Thuras raised his spear, and the black spear reached the sky, directly blasting the nearly 10 patrol soldiers in front of him into blood mist. Haha! Lontas laughed. Every time the flame hammer fell, 2 to 3, or even 3 or 4 patrol soldiers fell. Get out of here! Basham's face was cold, and he slashed down with his sword. The huge khaki sword shined, and directly rolled 7 or 8 patrol soldiers into powder. As for the Underworld Emperor, he flashed like lightning among the many patrolling soldiers. He held a black dagger and turned into black lines. Every time the black line passed by, one of the patrolling soldiers must fall. In an instant, the entire sky seemed to have become a killing field. The black gun's shadow, the flaming giant hammer, the yellow sword, the black dagger, and the rays of light lit up one after another, and the phantoms kept flickering. Flesh and flesh exploded, bones shattered, and the divine chain of laws flew around. The 4 Hades emperors were like 4 tigers entering the flock of sheep, killing wantonly and running rampant without any hindrance. Ah! Ah! A series of screams sounded, and the corpses of the black-armored and blood-striped warriors fell from the sky at high speeds like rain. The black-armored and blood-patterned warriors immediately panicked. Escape! Facing the unscrupulous killings of the 4 Hades emperors, they could no longer muster the slightest courage to fight. Quick, give me a group attack, don't worry about anything else, attack the 4 of them as a group. Ace, who was watching this scene below, was trembling all over. Group attack? Many patrolling soldiers who were as panicked as a frying pan were stunned. Although the 4 of them were fighting again, there were still their companions around them. Once a group attack, I am afraid that in the chaotic attack, more of our own people will die. But in today's situation, no one can control that much. If you don't mass attack and be slaughtered, there may be a glimmer of hope for group attacks. But how could Hades and the others, who heard Ace shouting, give them a chance? Whoosh! 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 The 4 people who originally gathered together to kill dispersed, like 4 bolts of lightning, pouring into the patrolling soldiers in the sky, and divided into 4 battle groups. This time, the countless remaining patrol soldiers don't know how to attack. Once they attack, I'm afraid they will all fall. Asshole. Ace was shaking with anger. You brat, you're the one who's been causing mischief. I didn't kill him before, so I'll make up for it now. Longtas shouted in the sky and rushed towards S. Who? However, before he could rush out of the crowd, a figure appeared in front of Ace below. It was Chi. You. Ace's expression suddenly froze, his eyes widened with fear, and he shot up into the sky to escape from this place. Chi, you guy, leave him to me. Longtas, who was rushing down at high speed in midair, was also anxious and shouted. However, Chi ignored it. He gently lifted up the folding fan in his hand, and a semicircular divine light burst out from his hand, directly covering the head of Ace, who was half flying. Pfft! Ace's head exploded suddenly, 2 horrified eyes splashed out, and the divine chain of laws fell to the ground, and he died with his eyes open. You are so angry with me, Chi. I asked you to leave it to me. Longtas was so angry that his hair stood up. Suddenly, Longtas, be careful. A flash of light flashed in Jason's eyes, and he shouted loudly. What? Longtas was startled. He felt something strange behind him, and he immediately turned around. Boom. I saw a dazzling black giant sword light up, and it hit Longtas hard. Wherever it passed, the space was shattered layer by layer. The power was so powerful that Longtas felt a sense of crisis in his heart, and there were chills all over his body. Roots, stand up. Pung. The giant black sword light hit Longtas's flame hammer, and the huge momentum directly smashed Longtas into the ground, revealing a deep pit on the ground. This scene brought the entire battlefield to an instant halt. The 2,000 patrol soldiers and countless people on Thunder Island who looked up were stunned. They had known about the power of Longtas before. He was a strong man at the peak of the sun god, but now he was slashed into the ground with a knife. Who was the one who used the knife? Longtas. Chiji's group of people hurriedly looked at the deep pit at the bottom. Ahem, which guy just attacked me? It's his grandma's. I have to smash him. In the deep pit, Longtas's angry voice sounded, and a figure rose into the sky. His body was in tatters, and his clothes were all in pieces. It was broken, but not injured. It was Longtas who was smashed into the ground. It's you guys who are running wild and wantonly on our Thunder Island? No matter who it is, you guys will definitely die today. A cold voice sounded, and the 6 purple-robed strong men in the sky looked at Jason and his group indifferently, speaking seriously. It's Buakai. Elders in purple robes. The elders in purple robes are here. We are saved. The patrol soldiers who were slaughtered before were all excited. Some of them even almost cried. The elders in purple robes seemed to be like a savior. They calmed down their originally panicked and overwhelmed hearts. The auras of these 6 people are so strong, they are all peak powerhouses of the sun god. This is the purple-robed elder of the 3 major families, the real master of the 3 major families, here on Thunder Island. In addition to the patriarchs of the 3 major families, they have the highest status. Countless tourists looked up from a distance, their hearts filled with excitement, and some insiders even exclaimed. Who? Who? Hades' emperor and his group also stopped killing and looked solemnly at the 6 Buakai people. They all returned to Jason, knowing that the real strong man from Thunder Island had appeared. Are you the real controllers of Thunder Island? Jason's body slowly rose into the air, and the 5 Chijis followed him, looking at each other coldly with the 6 Bakes. That's Jimmy who started this conflict. When Jason withdrew the formation, he changed his face again, followed the group of tourists trapped by the formation, and flew to a distance to watch. In such a chaotic and shocking situation, no one paid attention. Everyone's eyes were all on Chi and his group, who were at the pinnacle of the sun gods. Even Jason, who had never done anything, was always ignored. The 6 Buakai people had indifferent expressions. They did not answer Jason's words, but kept scanning their eyes on the street below. The extremely bustling streets of Thunder Island below were in a mess at the moment, with buildings collapsed in pieces. The corpses of a large number of patrolling soldiers fell there, stained with blood and extremely messy. An uncontrollable anger surged from the bottom of their hearts, and at the same time they glanced fiercely at Jason and his group, but the strength of Jason and his group shocked the six of them. Where did this group of people come from? How come there are so many strong people at the peak of Sunlight God? Buakai and others were surprised. Don't dare to have the slightest contempt. Originally, when Buakai heard his brother's story before, he didn't feel much because he didn't know Jason's strength, but now. But he felt troubled. The other party is really too strong. The 5 strong men at the peak of the Sun God are not a small force. In the outside world, they need at least a palace lord level, or the oldest families in the God realm, to possess them. But these 5, he was actually just a servant of the black-haired young man in the middle. In this way, the identity of the black-haired young man. But it made Buakai and the others a little afraid. Of course, Buakai and the others on Thunder Island are completely fearless. The power represented by the 3 major families is so strong that even the purple-robed elders are shocked and frightened. At the thought of this, the eyes of the group of people in Buakai became cold. No matter what the identity of this group of people is or where they come from, they have committed such a big thing on Thunder Island. If they are not killed, I am afraid that Thunder Island will no longer open. After secretly sending the news about this place to the 3 patriarchs of the 3 major families, the eyes of the 6 Buakai suddenly turned cold. You guys have violated the laws of Thunder Island and will be killed without mercy. Without any nonsense, the 6 Buakai people instantly turned into 6 bolts of lightning and stormed towards Jason and his group. Boom! Without any slights, each of the 6 Buakai released their most powerful power. The vast divine power soared into the sky, shaking the sky. Quick, get out of the way. Seeing this scene, the more than 2,000 patrol soldiers who were originally surrounding the area were so frightened that they all flew away. Many tourists looking up from a distance also retreated crazily again. Stand up. This is a fight between the strongest sun gods. If you are not careful, you will be in danger of falling, which makes these people feel nervous and excited at the same time. The 6 attacks were like bright rainbow lights, rushing toward the 6 Jasons. The people on Thunder Island are all virtuous. Jason's eyes condensed, and the black heavy sword behind his back was already in hand. Everyone, be careful. As Jason's words fell, the 6 Buakai people, the attack has already arrived in front of the Jason 6. Before the attack arrived, the space shock caused by it was transmitted to Jason and his group. That's it. Jason's eyes suddenly widened. Buzz. Thousands of chaotic energy surged out of his body, and the entire world was suddenly enveloped in white, forming a large formation. The 6 people in Buakai felt that there was suddenly a vast sky in front of them. They could not see anything around them, and their spiritual consciousness was greatly weakened. Such a sudden change immediately caused the rhythm in their hands to change. Open it for me. The next moment, angry shouts rang out, and the infinite divine power in the bodies of the 6 Buakai people surged out. The weapons in their hands were filled with divine light, and in an instant, the 5th grade formation arranged by Jason was destroyed. Break open. This is just a momentary change, and for ordinary people, it is naturally nothing. But when masters fight, Buakai and the other sudden changes have a huge impact. The large formation that filled the sky disappeared, and only a few explosive sounds were heard. At the moment when the other party lost consciousness, the 6 Jasons moved, and the weapons in their hands directly turned into a beam of light, blasting at the 6 Buakais respectively. What? The 6 people in Buakai were all shocked, but they were all masters. The weapons in their hands suddenly changed in circles, blocking the attacks of Jason and the others. However, no matter how many changes they made, they were still not as good as Jason and the others. People are already prepared. Pung. A dull roar sounded. The weapons of the 6 Jasons hit the weapons of the 6 Buakai. The long-awaited divine power suddenly rushed out like a flood that broke a bank and passed into the opponent. Within the body, the 6 Buakai groaned almost at the same time and retreated. Buzz. But at the next moment, another energy of chaos spread out, and the entire formation was released again, covering everyone. This time, Buakai and the others were not as lucky as before. They were at a disadvantage. Coupled with Jason's formation, the 6 Buakai had to break through the formation as quickly as possible while struggling to defend. After all, what Jason had arranged was only a 5th grade Deshang formation, which could not trap them, who were at the peak of the sun gods. However, there were still certain obstacles to the display of their divine consciousness and divine power. The roar sounded, and infinite divine power was released. Under the full exertion of the 6 Buakai people, the 5th grade Deshang formation that Jason had just arranged shattered again. From the formation of the formation to the shattering of the formation, the whole process did not exceed 1 second. But in just this second, for masters like Qi Ji and others who are at the peak of the sun gods, they can already do a lot of things. The formation broke open, and before the 6 Bakais could recover, they saw the attacks of the 6 Jasons coming at lightning speed. This time, the 6 Buakai people were not so lucky. Before they could take any real precautions, the attack from Jason and his group had already arrived. Boom! The attack containing terrifying divine power hit the 6 of them heavily. Pung! Pft! Boom! A dull roar resounded. The 6 Buakai people were directly hacked to the point of vomiting blood, and they were smashed into the ground. The terrible force impacted, and the nearby broken buildings were impacting. The ground turned into powder, and even some intact buildings in the distance collapsed under the impact of this divine power, filling the air with smoke and dust. Thousands of patrolling soldiers and countless people on Thunder Island who looked up were stunned. The battle had only started for a few seconds at this moment, but within these few seconds, the two sides still fought twice. However, what shocked everyone was that the scene turned out to be one-sided. The 6 Buakai people were each injured, while Jason and his party were injured. Is unscathed. Could it be that even the purple-robed elders of Thunder Island couldn't retain these 6 people? Is the myth of Thunder Island going to be shattered? Countless people were shocked. Boom! Smoke and dust dispersed, gravel flew, and the 6 Buakai people flew out from the ground at high speed. Their faces were filled with disbelief and extremely gloomy expressions. It was so embarrassing. In just one meeting, all 6 of them were injured, and they were collectively defeated. This made the 6 Buakai people, who had always been extremely arrogant, feel so depressed that they almost vomited blood. But after being angry, the 6 Buakai people were even more shocked. The black-haired young man was actually a master of formations, and the formations he set up were so powerful that they needed all their strength to break them, which resulted in their every attack being at a disadvantage. Who is this black-haired young man? He is so powerful, and his attainments in formations are even more frightening. There are only a few famous formation masters in the god realm. When did such a person appear? The 6 Buakai wiped away the blood from the corners of their mouths, with a trace of panic deep in their eyes. In the world of gods, formations are very strong, but at the level of Buakai and the others, ordinary 3rd and 4th grade formations do not need to be ignored at all. The aura naturally emitted from the body can defeat them and trap them. To have an impact on them, it needs to be at least a 5th grade Deshang formation, and there are currently no more than 5 people in the god realm who can arrange this kind of formation, and each of them is a guest of the major forces. Most people are familiar with it, but someone with an appearance like Jason's has never been heard of before. What should we do now? The 6 Buakai people were worried. The 6 opponents have the help of the 5th grade formation. Although the strength of both sides is at the same level, they are no match at all. In the sky, the thousands of patrolling soldiers in the distance were also dumbfounded. They originally thought that everything would be over when the purple-robed elder came, but the reality was completely beyond their expectations. Compared with the surprise of Buekai and the others, the 5 Chiji people were extremely happy. In terms of strength alone, the strength between the two sides should be said to be evenly matched. It would be difficult to tell the winner in a short time, but in Jia, with the help of the Mori formation, the situation immediately became one-sided. This is the powerful effect of the formation, and it is also the reason why the formation master has a high status in the world of gods. Since the other party has sent such experts, it's almost time to end it. Presumably, these powerful people at the peak of the Sun God clan should also know about the news about the saints. Jason thought secretly in his heart. His purpose was just to know. News from the saints. Of course, it's not the time to really ask this yet. If you want the other party to truly reveal the source of the information, you must capture the 6 of them. Jason looked at the eyes of the 6 Buekai people. Just like a hungry wolf looking at the sheep. Damn it. The looks in Jason's eyes made the 6 Buekai people feel as if a fire was burning in their hearts. The flames almost burned out everything in his body. It's such a shame, as the purple-robed elder of Thunder Island. They, who are at the peak of the sun gods, have never been so despised by others. Roar. A roar roared out of Buekai's mouth. His eyes suddenly turned extremely red, and a vast and deep power suddenly burst out from his body. Go to hell! Buekai shouted. The long knife in his hand shook, and the whole figure instantly turned into a giant sword, merging with the heaven and earth. The terrifying power spread and rushed directly towards the 6 Jasons. At the same time, the faces of the other 5 purple-robed elders were also flushed, and the strength in their bodies was increasing layer by layer. In an instant, it increased to the maximum and launched its most violent attack. Boom! The sky collapsed and the earth shattered, the wind and clouds changed color, and large tracts of void were shattered layer by layer like glass. This kind of shattering. It's not just ordinary strong men tearing apart the void, revealing the fragmentation of turbulent space, but the control of the laws of space by the peak sun god's control, shattering the entire space into nothingness. The 6 streams of light merged together in an instant, and the invincible thoughts rushed straight into the sky, sweeping across the wasteland. Humph! Jason's eyes were like lightning. There was a cold snort in his mouth. Buzz! The air of chaos circulated in the sky, and the 5th grade Deshang formation was formed again. However, at the moment when the formation was just formed, it was smashed into pieces by the terrifying attacks released by the 6 Buekai people. Jason's face did not change color, and he used chaotic energy crazily. Layer. 2 floors. 3 floors. In the blink of an eye, Jason launched 10 layers of formations in succession. Although the power of the 6 Buekai were overwhelming, they easily tore apart the layers of formations. But Jason's formation speed was so fast, it was even faster than the 6 Buekai's formation. This resulted in the great formation in the void seeming to always exist. But in the process of continuously breaking the formation, the 6 Buekai's strength was gradually depleted. The 5th grade Deshang formation is an extremely advanced formation. Buekai and the others seem to be relaxed, but every time they break through a layer, they consume a lot of divine power. As a 6th grade formation master, Jason, but he only needs to use his understanding of the laws of space and a small amount of divine power to continuously display it layer by layer. Boom! When Buekai and the others finally came to Jason and the others, their originally terrifying strength had been weakened to only 1/3. Haha! Chi-Ji and the other 5 laughed loudly, and all 5 of them took action at the same time. Boom! In the void, 2 forces collided heavily, and the terrifying force swept forward, tearing all the large formations arranged by Jason into pieces. Buekai spurted blood from his mouth and threw them away one by one. Haha, let's see if you guys still dare to be arrogant. Chi-Ji's 5 people roared repeatedly, and they rushed to meet them. They kept attacking with their hands. The 5 Bukai people were like sandbags. They were hit with blood splattering and their robes were broken. The divine body is cracked layer by layer. This, in the distance, everyone was stunned, looking at Jason and his group as if they were looking at devils. The purple-robed elders of Thunder Island are all at the peak of the sun gods, and in front of Jason and the others, they are like the difference between adults and children, completely ravaged. Ahem. After another attack, the 6 Bukai were suspended in midair in embarrassment, coughing out a mouthful of blood. They were constantly attacked and injured, so that their strength had dropped to less than half of its original strength. However, their expressions were indifferent, without any hint of despair or mercy. Huh? Jason frowned slightly. The other party's performance made him feel wary. It was obvious that their performance was not in line with their own situation. Haha, did you fight well? But that's all, because you will be dead soon. Bukai showed his teeth full of blood, laughed ferociously, and looked at the sky. Huh? Jason and the others also hurriedly turned back. Boom. In the distant sky, 3 streams of light suddenly appeared, like falling comets, carrying an indomitable momentum and rushing toward Jason and the others like lightning. Wow. The void trembled. Wherever these 3 strong men passed, the space was like half-waves of the sea, undulating toward both sides. The astonishing momentum condensed into a colorful aurora, like the majesty of the avenue coming down, covering Thunder Island. Who is running wild on my Thunder Island? A rumbling roar resounded. Under this sound, many tourists present could hardly restrain their bodies and had the urge to kowtow and kneel down. These are 3 strong men in red robes. The leader is a middle-aged man with red hair. Next to him are 2 old men. These 3 people have lightning-like eyes and majestic expressions. Their movements follow the laws of the Great Road. The flow is like the incarnation of the Great Road, controlling the sky. Meet the 3 clan leaders. When they saw these 3 people, whether they were the patrolling soldiers of Thunder Island or the 6 Bukai people, they all looked respectful, saluted to the 3 people in the air, and shouted loudly. These 3 people are the heads of the 3 major families who control Thunder Island. The 6 Bukai people hurriedly flew forward and came behind these 3 people, showing great respect. The 3 of them first looked at the 6 seriously injured Bukai people, then looked at the devastated streets below, and finally their eyes fell on Jason's group of people. Their eyes were so sharp that there seemed to be lightning in the depths of their eyes. Sir, the 3 of them are the invincible and powerful Sunyao gods. The 5 Chi-Jis no longer had any smiles on their faces, and they all came to Jason's side and spoke solemnly. As a strong man in the mansion of the man-god, Chi-Ji naturally knew something about the invincible power of the Sun Yao Tian god. He could only feel the aura of these 3 people in the body of the barbarian god Lan. Oh my god, there are 3 invincible and powerful Sunyao gods. In the distance, the crowd was already stunned. In the era when the god king did not appear, Sunyao god invincible was already the most powerful person in the entire world of gods. Any one of the Sunyao gods was invincible. A strong person is strong enough to walk in the realm of gods without fear. However, the invincible and powerful Sunyao gods are too rare. Most of the powerful people in the world of gods may not be able to see one invincible Sun Yao god in their lifetime. Now that 3 people appear at once, it is a surprise to everyone. Unspeakably shocking. 3 invincible and powerful sun gods. No wonder this Thunder Island has been able to stand in this sea of thunder for so many years. No one dares to offend them. Even the soldiers of the major palace lords in this sea of thunder do not dare to act wild on Thunder Island. Everyone. My heart suddenly dawned. Bukai, why are you in such a mess? How strong are those 6 people? Powell, the leader of the Warrant family, sent a message to Bukai with his spiritual consciousness and frowned. Master Patriarch, all 6 of them have the strength of the sun god, but the key is that the black-haired young man who leads him is not only strong, but also a master of 5th grade formations. Fifth grade formations can be arranged at will, so there was a hint of shame on Buakai's face. What? The fifth level formation master? Powell and the other three were surprised. Who was this black-haired young man? They naturally knew what the fifth level formation master represented. He was a general under the command of the major god kings. The master of the palace are all figures who need to be enthusiastically recruited, and the 5 Chiji people beside Jason also made the 3 Powells understand that this Jason must have some extremely terrifying background. But the next moment, their eyes became sharp again. No matter what the origin of the other party is, if they dare to be so arrogant on our Thunder Island, they will definitely have trouble coming and going. The 3 Powells are very confident, with their invincible powers. Strength is naturally fearless. The 5th grade formation is a huge obstacle for Buakai and the others, but for the invincible powerhouses of Sun Yao Tian Shen, their own momentum alone can break through it, and it cannot affect their strength at all. Huh. Thinking of this, Powell suddenly flew out of the crowd. The eyes of countless tourists below followed his actions, and they became excited. They understand that a terrifying battle is likely to begin.